Good afternoon. My name is Cody Gapare. I'm the owner and founder of Silish, and I am absolutely honored to be here today at the Your Way Global Women's Conference 2021. The theme for this year is What Next? Understanding the Times. And this theme couldn't be more apt considering everything that we've gone through in the past few months with COVID and lockdowns and everything that we as women and women in business have had to deal with. Now, before we go into what I have prepared for you, first of all, I would like to tell you a bit about myself because telling you about who Cody is will probably make you understand how Silas came about. So, in order to tell you about my story, I need to go back a little bit. Back, in fact, to when Cody was just 10 years old, growing up in Zimbabwe. Now, I used to love a program on telly called Customs Law. It was about a family of lawyers. This program absolutely made me fall in love with the idea of becoming a lawyer. So growing up, I really wanted to be a lawyer, but there were two problems with this dream. I wasn't a very bright kid. In fact, I was almost always the bottom of my class. The other problem is my parents didn't have a lot of money, so things like extra lessons or private schools were absolutely out of the question. So I grew up knowing that even though I had this burning desire in my heart to be a lawyer, that was never going to happen. So life happened. I grew up, and then I eventually came to the UK. I joined a company called Fleet Operations, where the guy who owned the company, Ross Jepson at the time, he said to me, "Why don't you do MVQs? You can get enough points to go to university." As soon as I had this, I lashed at the chance and I went and I did my MVQs. I got enough points to get into university. I applied and I was invited for an interview. The date of the interview was the 11th of August 2014. Now, I have never forgotten this date because for me, there were events that happened on this day that then made Cody the girl grow into the Cody the woman who you see today. And that day is quite a significant day in my life because there was quite a marked difference from the girl who woke up in the morning and the girl who went to bed later on that night. What happened was I walked into MMU for this interview at 6 o'clock. And because I had prepared for this interview for more than 5 years, I was ready. I knew the interview was going great until one of the final questions that they asked me. And this question would have been a generic question. There was nothing special about this question because they would have asked everybody who was having an interview on that day. What they asked me was, is there anything that you know that might interfere with your study at this university if we gave you the place? I paused because, unlike other people who probably would have said, "Oh, I probably need help with my sight," or "I'm a bit deaf," my reply was quite different. I said to the lady, "Actually, yes, I've just been diagnosed with breast cancer this afternoon." You see, 10 days before, I had found a lump in my breast and I had had a biopsy. And at 3 o'clock that afternoon, I had walked into Leighton Hospital only to be told that I had breast cancer. But my dream of becoming a lawyer was burning so bright within me that I could not fathom just letting that dream go. So while my doctor was trying to tell me about the treatment plan and what was going to happen, I walked out as he was speaking and I drove to Manchester for my interview. And that was a turning point in my life because when the lady asked me, "So, after receiving this devastating news, why did you decide to come anyway?" I said to her, "Ma'am, I have worked so hard to get to this point. And today I've received news that can probably derail my dream. But I don't want cancer to be the book of my life. Cancer can only ever be allowed to become a chapter in my life. So if it's all the same to you, I would like to continue and follow my dream, please." I walked out absolutely convinced that I had shot myself in the foot and I wasn't going to get a place. 3 days later, I was invited to come and enroll at the university. And it was a moment. So, how did that story then lead to Sea Life? What happened was I did start at the university and I was studying with my class. But when I had to face working full time, being a single mom to my two boys, Having my family so far away from me and then studying part time, everything became so difficult. So I had to sit down and make a choice. And I decided that my dream of becoming a lawyer had to be sacrificed. And after everything that I'd been through, hadn't I gone over and above the call of duty, I was facing a challenge where I was having had to give up that dream. So I spiraled into a depression. And it was during this time when I was trying to find a way of getting out. I did not think to go and ask for help. I did just sit at home and look for ways of getting myself back to me because my kids needed me. My work was suffering. And I started doing something out of desperation called Lipstick and Heels. Lipstick and Heels was simply this. I'd wake up in the morning, take a shower, put my makeup on, put on a really nice frock, put nice shoes on. Beyond that, I didn't know where this was going to lead, but something amazing started to happen. I started to feel better. I started waking up in the morning and not worrying about things that I couldn't change, like losing my breast and pain that wouldn't go away. I would wake up in the morning and think, what color is my wig going to be today? What dress am I wearing? How am I going to make it to my shoes and my handbag? And this became my life. So for me, I became obsessed with looking as beautiful as I could and trying to hide as much as I could the fact that I was going through cancer. That's when I realized when my lashes started falling out. The first thing was I didn't know that my lashes were going to fall out. So I wasn't really prepared. The next thing I thought is I need to hide the fact that I don't have lashes because it's going to give away the fact that I was going through cancer. So I went and I bought a pair of false lashes. But when I tried to put on these lashes, they wouldn't stay in place. You see, false eyelashes tend to use your natural lashes as a ledge to rest on. So without this ledge, it's really difficult to wear false eyelashes. So I decided that I was going to come up with a lash that people without natural lashes like me could wear. So I sat at my kitchen table without knowledge of ever running a business or without beauty knowledge. And I started to tinker with lashes and household items and everything. And then the idea of sea lash was born. In 2015, I was trying to put this idea into fruition. But because I did not have beauty background or business background, getting people to take me seriously was really difficult. So difficult that even the bank that I walked into to try or to open a business account wouldn't let me open a business account. I kept knocking on doors because I had this idea, and every time I would go for radiotherapy or I would go for chemotherapy, I'd be asking people, "Do you know what you can do in order to, wear false lashes when your lashes are falling off?" And nobody really could give me an answer. Even the Macmillan nurses didn't really know what to tell me. So I knew I was onto something. So people who didn't take me seriously, the people that were telling me that I was trying to solve a problem that didn't exist. The people that didn't tell me what do you know about starting a business? The people that were telling me how many people do you know that have brought a new product to market? I didn't care and I didn't listen because to me that idea made sense. And for me, that was good enough. So I kept knocking on doors until Boots came calling and they invited me to go and pitch my idea to them. I went, I sat down, and I gave them not so great a pitch. What really saved the day on that day was the fact that I was wearing sea lash, a prototype that I had made at home, and they didn't even notice that I didn't have my own natural lashes. They agreed that they wanted to take my idea and 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 have sea lash in their shops. But they said to me, "We've got 2,000 shops, and if we gave you an order tomorrow, how are you going to make sure that you've got enough money to supply that order?" At that time, I didn't know. But I knew that I had come this far. I was going to find a way. The way came in the form of ILO. ILO got in touch and they said they wanted to work with me. I was so convinced that when ILO got in touch in 2016 in February, surely by Christmas we'll be selling lashes. ILO had told me that without a viable product that they were quite sure would sell, we were not going to go to market. In fact, I had a verbal contract. I didn't actually had a written contract at that time. So I was told that from now on, we're going to work on improving this project. We're going to work with you, and we're going to work into a project that we can mass produce and we can sell. But until that time, you cannot talk about this project, because what we don't want is somebody to take this idea and then take it to market before we can. So from working 20 hours a day, 18 hours a day, working on this product by myself, I suddenly had a big company, which was a really good thing. But I suddenly was left with nothing to do. And I had to sit on my hands. And for us women, especially as business women who are doers, we thrive on working. We like to work hard. We like to keep busy because our minds are always working. And I had suddenly gone from really having a full life where I had too much to do to really having nothing to do. I had actually quit my job at that time, and I didn't have a lot of money. So I had to go back and find temporary work to pay my bills. In that time, I learned some lessons. And this is why, for me, I have chosen to talk about lessons from the canvas. Because if you ask me, how do you start a company? I'll tell you, I don't know. But ask me how not to start a company. I have made every single mistake in the book. And these lessons that I have learned are what have brought my business from launching in Boost in 2019 in only a few hundred shops to now being in almost every bookstore in the UK and other outlets, to being in the UK, in the USA, in Walgreens, to Australia, Finland, Norway, Sweden, Poland, and the UAE. We have managed to survive lockdown. We didn't come away unscathed. We were taught some lessons during that time, but we have managed to stay on course. And now Silage is doing great again. So I hope the next few lessons that I'm going to give to you. These are not all the lessons that I've learned, but these are some of the lessons that I have learned, especially on those times when I was down and out, and those times when I was doubting whether I could carry on. Because most of the time, as business leaders, as women, as entrepreneurs, as head of our organizations, we are not allowed to be vulnerable. So for you to admit that, I am struggling, I'm not doing very well, it's not something that we are allowed to do very often. So I just wanted to probably make it okay for you to know that sometimes you get knocked down, and sometimes, like a fighter, you're down on the canvas. The important thing is to forget the pain, but never ever forget the lessons. Because if you forget the lessons, you're bound to remember them. So, what are lessons from the canvas? Lessons from the canvas, like I said, are those painful life lessons that you learn. And oftentimes, these become the most important lessons that you learn, because these are the lessons that make you go from saying, I don't think I can, to waking up in the morning and saying, do you know what? I'm going to try again one more time. But this time, I'm trying with the wisdom of the scars of yesterday. So, the first lesson that I have is just start. For me, I always think this is the most important lesson to learn, because you have to start with what you have, start with what you can, start with what you know. Start broke, start unprepared, start scared, start, start, just start. Because when you start, the of the problems that you have when you start are very different from the problems that you have when you've got an idea that's not on paper. Because if you write a word, you're going to write a sentence. If you write a sentence, you're going to write a page. If you write a page, you can write a book. When you start, the people can come in and add to your book, and then your book keeps growing. But before you even start, there is nothing there. And you might decide you're going to start tomorrow, but we all know that tomorrow never comes. So whatever you're putting off, start. It doesn't have to be perfect. You will perfect it as you go. But the most important thing is just put some ink on that paper. Start writing a business plan. Start talking to someone. Start uh, doing something towards that dream that you've got. Because if you do not start, it will always be something that you'll regret. My second lesson is surround yourself with like-minded people. And it is one of those lessons that I learned. Again, lessons from the canvas. It is something that I learned that when I first started my business, I was still moving about or spending time with those friends that I'd been spending time with before I started my business. But when I would go and ask them, do you know how I can open a business plan? They didn't know. Do you know where I can go to? Do you know anybody who knows how to set up a company? They didn't know. Do you know the difference between a limited company and a sole trader? They had no idea because these were people that I used to go partying with. These were people that I used to just hang around with. They didn't have the same kind of um, vision that I had. I wanted to do something that was quite different from them. There's nothing wrong with those friends. I'm still friendly with those people that I used to be friends with back in the day. But I had to decide that the majority of my life, if I wanted to go in a certain direction, I had to sit at the feet of people who'd done it before, and I had to start networking. In fact, the women in Cheshire are some of the people that have helped Silas to become what it became today, because I had a group of women that were there with just hands coming out of the darkness on days when it was too dark for me to see, and somebody would tell me how to register your company. Someone would tell me where I could go, where people were being given a grant. Someone would tell me, somebody would ask, would say, would you like to come and speak at my event? And that way, the word would get round that I was trying to do this thing, and somebody would tell me where people were where they were kind of workshops for things that I needed to know. So by surrounding myself with like-minded people, with women like women in this network right now, women who have got the answers that I'm looking for, really really helped me to go up um to help my vision to go forward, because these were the people that encouraged me. And when I was having days when I thought, oh, this is so difficult, there was always somebody who would tell me, look, I went through exactly the same thing that you went through, and I went through it and I got through the other side. So it would encourage me, and I'd keep on going. The next lesson is to create accountability. And this I learned really when I had launched my business and I had things that I had to learn, and I wasn't very good at them. I wasn't good at finances. I wasn't good at writing business plans. I wasn't good at keeping receipts. I wasn't good at, there was a lot of things that I had to, as you know, as business women, when you first start your business, there's a lot of things that you do not know how to do. And your brain refuses to work with you because you procrastinate, because you don't want to do these things. It's things that you don't do by rote, you have to learn, and you end up just not doing the things that you're supposed to do, and not doing those little things or those big things or those annoying things or those painful things is what stops your business from growing. So invest in mentors and coaches. For me, I have more than one mentor and I have more than one coach, some of them formal, some of them informal, but I know these are people that if I tell them I am going to do something, they hold me accountable. If I say I'm going to deliver something by such and such a date, if I haven't delivered it, I know that I'm going to have to answer. And personally, I don't like to have to answer or make excuses about why something hasn't been done. So I know as much as it hurts, I have some people who, if I see my phone ring, I'm just like, oh, I really don't want to pick it up because there's something that I should have done that I haven't done. But what that does is the next time they call, they know that the things that I say I've done, I have done. It might be painful. It might mean that I might sit at my desk a bit longer than I wanted to. It might mean that I might have to cancel that party and stay in and do what I have to do. But at the end of the day, I have progressed. I am not where I was yesterday. So creating accountability for me helps move forward. I like to procrastinate, and that is what helps me to just get by and keep on moving in the direction that I want to keep on moving in. The next one is get comfortable with your flaws. Again, going back to my last lesson of creating accountability. I I am I think My natural person is a lazy person. Cody would be quite comfortable to just sit on the couch and do absolutely nothing if I'm allowed to, if I allow myself to. But I've got so much that I want to achieve that I know that if I allow the lazy Cody to come to the fore, nothing gets done. So if I get comfortable with knowing who I am, A, no one can use this against me, and B, I can do something about it. My timekeeping is atrocious, and I know this. Before anybody else would come to me and say to me, Cody, please, my time is precious to me. If I invite you for a meeting, I need you to be here on time. I already know. So in my phone, every single meeting has been put in my diary 30 minutes ahead. So most of the time, I would call someone and I'm like, "Oh, I'm really sorry, I'm running late." And she's like, "What are you talking about? The meeting is not for another 30 minutes." But those are the things that I have done myself by knowing. Because if you don't know your flaws, if three, four, five people are saying to you the same thing, sometimes it's not because people hate you, but it's because you really need to sit down with yourself and and have a word with yourself and just really have a like a look at yourself and just ask yourself, is it really that people don't like me, or is it something that I need to change? And if it's something that I don't need to change, how do I make it work for me? How do I make it work for me? How do I put things in place? Do I um do I preempt it? Do I change the direction? Do I work with a different set of people? There has to be something that you can do, because if we do not become our worst critics, we will lose customers and we'll lose friends and we'll lose partners that want to work with us, because there's probably it's such a small thing, it's probably the way you say some things, your delivery, it's probably your timekeeping, it's probably the fact that it's like people cannot depend on you to deliver things on time. If you know this is what you do, it is really worth the time to sit down and just be honest and say, you know what, Cody, you need to look at this. It's not right that everybody should be complaining about this all the time. Do something about it. Because these are the things, when we change small things within ourselves, we grow. And you'll find that the person that you were when you started, especially when it's your business where you are accountable for every bit of it. The person that you were when you first started is not the person that you are now. And as you're changing, try and change those things that you're least excited about changing, because those are the things that make a difference, and those are the things that help us to grow. Level up. I love this because we all love to level up. Every time something happens, every time we introduce a new line to our collection, every time we sort of like we have something within our business that takes our business to the next step. But sometimes we feel like we have to stay in the same situation because our reality has changed. The past 2 years, 2020, 2021, we've had so many disruptions that we were we would have been forgiven for just sitting down and giving up and say, you know what, this lockdown, everybody's suffering. We can't do anything about it. Businesses are closing, so my business might be closing, so might be closing too, because that's what everybody else is going through. But my way of looking at this is, do not downgrade your dreams to suit your reality. Upgrade your conviction to suit your destiny. Because if you refuse to give up, 9 times out of 10, you'll find a way to go forward. Sometimes some of those stumbling blocks, you can turn them into stepping stones, because leveling up is what businesses do. You cannot stay in the same place. You should always be looking at place of ways to go forward. And it's one of those lessons again that I learned when I was that period between 2016 and 2019. I was sitting there and I had been told that I can't do anything about silage, because obviously we were in the process of making this product market worthy. So I was sitting there and I was scared, and I was thinking, okay, if silage doesn't happen, what am I going to do? And what I decided to do was, instead of just sitting there and waiting for things to happen to me, I was going to level up. So I went and I joined the um, uh, Cheshire, what do you call it? Um, I went and I joined Smart Cheshire. Smart Cheshire was so instrumental in turning just a woman who was trying to run a business into a businesswoman. I started thinking about marketing. I started thinking about my product. I started thinking about branding. I started thinking about how I was going to scale up my business, all the things that I didn't know. So during that time when I couldn't do anything about the product itself, I was learning about running, how to run my business. So in that time, I decided to level up instead of just sitting there and worrying about things that I couldn't control. Again, this is another one that I think is really, really important, especially in the last 2 years that we've been. Some of our businesses haven't been able to grow. Some of us have been forced to really come to a standstill because of the lockdown, because of the things that have been happening in the last 2 years, last 18 months or so. And these are the times where you have to think you cannot sit here and wait for the storm to pass. While you're waiting, you have to grow. In 2017, I went back to university. Remember, in 2014, I had gotten a place and I started doing my law degree, and I had to drop out. In 2017, I decided to go back to university. I went and I did a master's in business admin. And the reason I didn't go back to do law was because my dream and my direction in life had changed. So while I couldn't pursue the dream of my childhood, I had found a new dream. And this dream was more suited to where I was in life. And that's okay because sometimes life takes you in a different direction. Sometimes your dream or what you're capable of is so much bigger than what you always thought you were meant to be. So instead of being of going to study law like I wanted to, I decided that I was going to study business management because for me it was more important to learn how to effectively run my business. And while I was sitting here and I couldn't do anything about Silash, I couldn't just sit here and fold my hands and wait for things to happen to me. I had to make things happen. So it is really important for you to understand that it doesn't matter that you can't do anything right now, the thing that you want to do right now. There are other things that you can do so that by the time whatever you're waiting for comes to fruition, you're not where you used to be. You were ahead. So it is important to remember to grow while you wait. Then there is one that I had to learn the hard way. I'm an ideas person, and I am sure a lot of us women are, especially if you're an entrepreneur, if you're a businesswoman, we see opportunities everywhere. We've got ideas coming out of our every pore, and that is amazing. That is our superpower because we get to do what we do because we love to do what we do because we always see the world differently from everybody else. But the thing about ideas is we have too many. And sometimes our ideas become so many that they crush the other ideas. So it is important to find the core ideas. If you know your why, you know why you started. And you have to jealously protect that why and really have your business plan. That's why things like business plans, that's why things like your 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 vision for your company is really important because you will know when you're veering away from where your vision is taking you. And it might come as a really impressive idea that you've had or an opportunity that comes to you and somebody's just like, we want you to join our company as I don't know, we want you to be one of the directors in our company, or we want you to sit on the board of advisors. And that is something that is, everybody wants to be asked to do things like that, but sometimes you don't have the time. Sometimes you don't have the capacity to do things like that. And sometimes you come up with a new idea of something that you could do. You really cannot afford the time. And those are the times to do what I call killing your darlings. Absolutely understand that this is a good idea and it would have probably made you a lot of money or it could have really probably fulfilled you. But understand that this is not the time to pursue a new dream because you've got another dream that you're already pursuing. Because if you pursue too many things, sometimes you end up not doing one thing as well as you should, and then you lose all of the things that you're trying to pursue. So remember, walk away. Not every opportunity is an opportunity. And lastly, celebrate the small wins. We work really hard, and sometimes we forget to just stop and say, "Well done." Sometimes something happens and we don't celebrate it because we're waiting for the big wins. We're waiting for, the big awards, or we're waiting for to launch a new line, or we're waiting to do the big things, waiting for that million. But it is the small little incremental gains that lead on to the big things. So, apart from reminding yourself and taking a break and saying to yourself, you know what, you've done really well. This is what you've been working for. Well done. It also is very crucial on the days when you think the sun is not shining to just remember, you know what, today I managed to get up in the morning and I cleared my inbox. I didn't do anything amazing, but I cleared my inbox. That's a small win. For me, I create 5 small wins a day. If I clear my inbox, if I manage to go for a walk, if I manage to spend time with my kids, if I manage to return every single phone call that I've had that day, um, and if I manage to do maybe one other small win, I have won the day. I might have lost that contract that I wanted. I might have, but then all those tiny little things that, sometimes that's all you can do. Sometimes courage doesn't shout. Sometimes it's just a little voice that says, let's try again tomorrow. So I hope this has been helpful, and I hope it's going to encourage someone. And I hope that if there's anybody out there who would like to ask questions, they can get in touch, and I will try and answer any questions that you have. Thank you very much for your time. And I am now going to go and listen to other amazing ladies who are still speaking today. Thanks.